The neighbor everyone trusted, a true crime story on Maple Crescent. Nothing ever really happened. It was the kind of street real estate agents described with words like safe, quiet, family-friendly. The lawns were trimmed. The mailboxes matched. On summer evenings, porch lights glowed softly while neighbors talked across driveways. And in the center house with the blue shutters lived Daniel Whitmore. If you had asked anyone on that street to name the safest person there, they would have said his name without hesitation. That's what makes this story so difficult to tell. Because Daniel didn't arrive like a threat. He arrived with a smile, a toolbox, and a plate of brownies. The man who showed up Daniel moved in 5 years before the first disappearance. He introduced himself within 48 hours. He memorized names. He offered help before anyone asked for it. When Mrs. Dalloway's pipe burst during winter, Daniel shut off her water before the plumber arrived. When the Hendersons left town for 2 weeks, Daniel watered their plants and brought in their mail. When kids forgot their house keys after school, they waited safely on Daniel's porch. He never overstepped, never lingered too long. He understood boundaries, at least the visible ones. And slowly, carefully, he became part of the infrastructure of Maple Crescent. People trusted him with alarm codes, with garage remotes, with spare keys. It felt natural. He was dependable, reliable, present. He always showed up. That detail would matter later. The first vanishing Emily Carter disappeared on a Sunday night in early spring. She had waved at Daniel that afternoon while unloading groceries. He had crossed the street to carry the heavier bags for her. "You're a lifesaver," she laughed. "I'm right here," he replied. Those were the last words anyone remembered her speaking to him. By Monday morning, she hadn't gone to work. Her sister called repeatedly. No answer. By evening, police were inside her house. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no shattered glass. Her purse sat on the kitchen counter, her phone beside it. The television remote rested neatly on the arm of the couch. It looked like she had stepped outside for a moment, except she never came back. The neighborhood buzzed with fear. Daniel was the first to knock on doors, offering reassurance. "I'll help organize a search," he said gently. And he did. He printed flyers. He walked the nearby trails. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Emily's family while volunteers called her name into the woods. He cried with them. People noticed that too. "He cares," they said. The night camera 3 months later, Rachel and Gwen vanished. And this time, the fear had teeth. Rachel lived 2 houses from Daniel. She worked long shifts as a nurse and often came home after dark. The night she disappeared, a storm rolled through town. Rain washed the sidewalks clean. Thunder rattled windows. At 11:38 p.m., Rachel's porch light turned on. At 11:43 p.m., her door opened. No screams, no alarms, no neighbors calling police, just rain. Her phone was later found charging in the bedroom, her wallet untouched. Again, no forced entry. It was as if she had opened the door for someone she knew, someone she trusted. The detail that almost went unnoticed, the breakthrough didn't come from brilliant detective work or a sudden confession. It came from something ordinary. A doorbell camera belonging to the retired couple across from Rachel's house. They had installed it after Emily disappeared, just in case. But they rarely checked it. When detectives finally reviewed the footage frame by frame, they noticed a figure walking through the rain. No hood, no attempt to hide, just a man crossing the street calmly. The timestamp read 11:42 p.m. The man approached Rachel's house. The porch light turned on. The door opened. He stepped inside. 47 minutes later, he stepped back out. Alone. The rain had intensified by then, washing over his shoulders, erasing anything he might have left behind. When detectives zoomed in on the footage, the neighborhood felt its breath leave. It was Daniel. The interview Daniel didn't panic when officers arrived at his door. He invited them inside, made coffee, spoke evenly. "Yes, I went over," he admitted. Rachel texted earlier saying she heard something outside. "I wanted to make sure she was okay. Can we see that text?" Detective Alvarez asked. Daniel hesitated for the first time. "I deleted it." "Why?" "I clear my phone regularly." Cell tower data told a different story. Daniel's phone had connected to Rachel's Wi-Fi network at 11:43 p.m. It disconnected at 12:30 a.m. He had not mentioned staying that long. The basement. The search warrant was executed 2 days later. Daniel stood calmly on his front lawn as officers moved through his home. Neighbors watched from behind curtains. The house looked immaculate. Clean counters, labeled storage bins, a faint scent of lemon disinfectant. Then officers reached the basement. Behind a shelving unit, one that looked permanently fixed, they discovered something subtle. Fresh scrape marks on the concrete floor. They moved the shelf. Behind it was a door, painted the same color as the wall. Unlocked. Inside, the air was cooler, quieter, more controlled. There were shelves, boxes, and personal items carefully arranged. Emily's silver necklace, Rachel's nursing badge, a scarf, a bracelet, objects that had never been reported stolen because no one knew they were missing. And on a desk in the corner sat a notebook, neatly written, organized, observational. Emily, trust quickly, feels safe around me. Rachel, anxious about noise at night, likely to call for help. Both predictable routines. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't rage. It was planning. The mask slips forensic teams uncovered more than souvenirs. They found fibers matching clothing worn by both women, traces of cleaning agents used excessively in specific areas. And beneath newly poured concrete in a crawl space section of the basement floor, they found what the town had feared. Daniel had not relied on force. He relied on familiarity. He knocked. They opened the door. The psychology of a predator at trial. Prosecutors described Daniel not as impulsive, but methodical. He cultivated trust over years. He made himself indispensable. He became the answer to small emergencies. And once trust was absolute, he used it. Experts testified that Daniel exhibited traits consistent with organized predatory behavior: patience, social intelligence, and emotional mimicry. He knew when to comfort, when to step back, when to offer help. He attended search parties for women he had already harmed. He held grieving mothers while knowing the truth. That was the part the community struggled with most. Not just the crime, but the performance. The moment that broke the courtroom during sentencing, Emily's sister stood up to speak. "You didn't break into her house," she said, voice shaking. "She let you in." Daniel finally looked down. It was the only visible reaction he showed during the entire trial. He was sentenced to life without parole. He never confessed. After Maple Crescent, the street changed. Neighbors who once chatted across lawns now avoided eye contact. Spare keys were retrieved. Locks replaced. Security systems installed. But the damage wasn't mechanical. It was psychological. Because trust, once broken that way, doesn't reset easily. Years later, new families moved in. Children ride bikes again. But longtime residents still remember how it felt to watch Daniel carry groceries for someone who would disappear hours later. They remember how safe they felt, how certain they were. And sometimes, late at night, when there's a knock at the door, they hesitate. Because the most terrifying lesson Maple Crescent learned wasn't about strangers. It was about familiarity. The neighbor everyone trusted didn't need to force his way in. He just had to knock and wait, and someone always opened the door.